All right, welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I am the guy who picked Frank Mir to defeat Ian Freeman. I don't know. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno, number 4. Can't wait for this fucking fight. And it's a fight I've shit on all year, but now that it's here and it's on my plate, and now that I've rewatched their first 3 fights, I'm really looking forward to this. These guys are just made for each other. I know they had that one fight where Brandon Moreno was dominant and got the submission victory, but still, they've given us 2 Fight of the Year candidates, and I think this is going to produce another one. Maybe not a Fight of the Year candidate, that's pretty bold, but I'll say this is my pick to win Fight of the Night before the fight card. And I say that because, look, Figueiredo has the most dangerous offense in the division. Brandon Moreno is the toughest guy in the division. Or maybe that's Pantoja. I don't know. But, there's only a few guys that I think could survive with Deiveson Figueiredo, and Brandon Moreno is one of them. He's already survived 65 minutes with him anyway. And, with anybody else, you lock him in a cage with Figueiredo and have him fight for 65 minutes, they're getting finished like 11 times. But Moreno, he's really tough to get out of there. He's a Mexican, That's not nothing. They are as tough as they claim to be. And Moreno has great cardio, really great cardio. He's shown he can fight 5 rounds hard. I think he did suffer a learning lesson against Sergio Pettis back in his first main event, however long that ago that was, 6-7 years or whatever. But he came out strong in round 1 and then faded. But since then, Brandon Moreno's looked like a great 5-round fighter. And actually, the majority of his finishes in recent memory all come deep into the fight. He took out Kai France in round number 3 with a body kick. He took out Deiveson Figueiredo in round number 3 with a rear naked choke. And in LFA, he took out Michael Perez with a 4th-round knockout. So he's definitely a good cardio fighter, Brandon Moreno. And it's not like he doesn't bring the power either. He brings the power. He throws down, again, like a Mexican. And he is a submission threat, first and foremost. He's got 20 wins, and 11 of them are via submission. We've seen plenty of them in the UFC. I remember when he made his debut after coming off The Ultimate Fighter, where he was finished for the first time, the only time, against Alexander Pantoja, which was a fight that made a lot of sense, a finish that made a lot of sense, because they seeded that tournament, and Pantoja was number 1, Moreno was number 16. I'm just saying that's what should have happened, but still, Moreno performed very well in that fight, and it looked like he had some promise. Then he gets the call to the UFC, beating the rest of the guys in the tournament there. And I think this was even during the airing of that show. But Moreno submits Louis Smolka, goes on to submit Dustin Ortiz, dominates or, outworks Ryan Benoit. That was a split decision, but it was clearly Moreno's fight. And he became a bona fide UFC fighter instantly, few guys are able to beat those guys, let alone put them away, and Brandon Moreno showed to have like extra good submission skills, good finishing ability. If you don't believe me, ask Deiveson Figueiredo. No, but I do trust Moreno's skill set. I do think he could, if anybody's getting the finish in this fight, in my opinion, even though this is largely based on toughness, I'm going with Moreno. I think he's extra hard to put away, but also I think Deiveson Figueiredo, obviously he might have I can't say a weakness on the ground because he's a very good submission threat himself. But yeah, if there's a weakness, it's someone dominating him on the ground. We've seen him neutralized by Jussier Formiga and Jared Brooks to a large extent. Deiveson did win that decision against Jared Brooks, but Jared Brooks held him down. That's really all he did, but he still did it quite a bit. And against Brandon Moreno, of course, in that second fight, Brandon Moreno knocked him down and then took him down and then strangled him. But in my opinion, Deiveson no-showed that fight. I had it in my head that he was knocked down at the end of round 1, and then he had the fight taken out of him. He just wasn't the same. But after rewatching that fight, there's a point before the knockdown where John Anik says, or someone says, like, the strikes are like 40-4 right now. And it was just like 10-1, fucking insane. But he was a zombie there, you know? I don't know what the game plan was or whatever, but he never got going. And that's the anomaly in his whole career, probably, but certainly within this series, you know? And they fought enough where you can talk like that. But the two fights they've had that went the distance were both wars. Both those guys showed cardio and tenacity and grit and everything else. And generally speaking, I thought Figueiredo got the better of Moreno in those two fights. That first fight, I thought he won anyway, but, it was ruled a draw because he did hurt Moreno badly with a foul. And, you can't blame the ref there. I think it was Herzog. He was hurt. He was compromised. So you have to, balance the scale in one way or another. And that was that. But still, I thought Figueiredo won the point battle anyway, despite the low blow. And in the third round of the third fight, I thought that was actually a lot closer, even with the knockdown that I thought swayed the fight to Figueiredo. I did think he won with that third round knockdown. He knocked him down with like 5 seconds left, and it wasn't some momentum knockdown like you see with other shit. It was a knockdown. He smashed his face, and he took away all that work Moreno was doing in round 3. And in the end, that's absolutely what won him the title. And I'm not even trying to dismiss that, Oh, he knocked him down. That's not going to happen again. No, it probably will, because he's the most dangerous striker in the division. You could almost fucking count on it. I'm not saying you can count on the knockdown, but I'm saying, you absolutely can't dismiss that as a fluke. That's one of his top traits, Deiveson Figueiredo, is that he's the hardest striker in the division, and everybody knows it. Figueiredo, he's got 8 first-round submissions. He brings the dynamicism there, and he's got a great guillotine, as we've seen at the UFC, but I don't see him putting Moreno away. I think if Figueiredo does win, it's by decision. That's the way Moreno's lost. And I find myself siding with Deiveson Figueiredo. I think, I have some reservations about his age. He's now a year older, 35 years old. And, for a guy flyweight, I don't think that's nothing. But until I see him start to fall, I can't bet on it and I can't predict it. But having seen these guys fight, I do think Deiveson Figueiredo wins the battle. I think he wins the point battle. He's in there throwing down with Brandon Moreno, who doesn't stop trying. I mean, even in that third fight, Brandon Moreno was gunning for a finish up until that last second, that final bell. And, that's a tough task. But Deiveson Figueiredo is up to the task. And I do think any big moment, aside from, takedowns and submissions, I guess, but any big moment on the feet is probably going to belong to Deiveson Figueiredo. I know he was knocked down in that second fight, but still, Deiveson Figueiredo will have those gigantic moments because he's got that gigantic power. And then after that, the point fight, yeah, Moreno's slightly ahead. He's the better volume guy, but still, Deiveson is not too far behind. And he's also the better athlete, which, when he's using that offensively, he can score points on the ground, as we've seen against Moreno. They can both score points with takedowns. I think Deiveson Figueiredo, if he's firing on all cylinders, he's going to win the point battle. So I'm going with Figueiredo. I'm predicting it's going to be a 5-round war. If Brandon Moreno's losing a fight, it's not going to end via finish. So my only bet for this fight is, I have Figueiredo the money line because I'm a degenerate and I like to do parlays. But I also have Figueiredo at plus 225 to win by decision. We'll see what happens. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.